Well, good evening and welcome to tonight's program. My name is Julie Mahler, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist here at IRG Physical and Hand Therapy Company. And tonight's program is from A to Z back to school lunches. And my plans for tonight is just talk all about. Here, hold on, why isn't this going? There we go. I wanted to let you know all about first, why is it important to have lunch? And then all sorts of packable school lunch ideas, and then also some resources. And let's start with the importance of lunch. And I feel like lunch is the time of day that a lot of people just forget about. Let me take that back. I think a lot of parents really think about their kids' lunches, but they don't necessarily think about their own lunches. And so I want to show how you can easily pack your child's lunch and pack something for yourself as well that might be a little bit more adult-like or more fit your profile, but not make a whole bunch of extra work. And so the deal with or the benefit of the balanced lunch is it can help kids and it can help adults get the nutrients you need to learn and play. And what I found with my patients so often are the people that I work with. And so now I'm talking more adults and some kids, more teenage kids, and even some younger kids as well, that when they miss lunch or they just have a little bit of lunch, then they're starving by 3 o'clock and they overeat by dinner, and then they just feel horrible that evening and they don't sleep very well. And so that pattern doesn't work really very well for them. Another thing I've found about lunch is when people don't really plan lunch, then they oftentimes don't really get the vegetables. And honestly, vegetables are one of those kind of food groups, if you will, that they're part of like every single major study out there that shows clinical study that helps prevent all sorts of horrible diseases. And so vegetables are so important for us, and they can be really delicious too if we can just figure out ways to easily pack them, because I also realize we're short on time. So we want to make sure that we consider that. And then let's see. I think that's my main reasons for why let's make sure that we include lunches. And then what I've found when I'm considering lunch is what's like a general guideline to follow, and what's an easy way to check off, like how do you check off boxes? And so if you look at this is just my plate from USDA, and you can see fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, dairy. And so it's not like I have people saying, okay, I'm 100% in. I have to check off every box every time. And I'm like, well, no, you don't have to be perfect with this, but it is a nice guideline and it's a good outline to tell, okay, I'm going to try to hit that protein. So my child really has something substantial so that they can focus on their classes in the afternoon. And then the vegetables can be next. And so it's a way to kind of get those different food groups in. And if your child's not able to tolerate, let's say, dairy, maybe they're lactose intolerant, then you just have to modify it according to what your family's needs are. But it's kind of a good place to start. The 80-20 rule is don't beat yourself up if you don't hit all the food groups. This is no place to feel guilty. I feel like we feel guilty about so many different things, and we want to enjoy our foods and really find all sorts of delicious options. And so rather than focusing on what we're not giving our kids, we want to focus on what we are giving them. And let's say, oh gosh, I didn't put a vegetable in my child's lunch, but we can make that up by having it as snack and things of that sort. I'm all about dips if it helps your child eat the vegetables or even the fruit. And so we can talk more about what some of those really yummy options are. And then it's okay to have a fun treat in the lunch as well. And it can be something sweet. It can be something um, like gummy, some of those gummy candies or a little chocolate coin. But it can also be like a sticker or a note from mommy that can kind of make that lunch fun. Um, Especially for the younger kids, that can be an important part as well. So to get started, I wanted to kind of get right into kind of the protein groove of thing, because I feel like it helps if you have sort of a basic understanding of nutrition while you're packing the lunch. And so, in terms of protein foods, I'm going to show you this is kind of a list. And I have a coworker here. Her name's Amber, and she's going to be sending out this webinar. So you'll have these slides in your email, or you could take a picture of this as well. If you're not, if you kind of want to make sure, okay, these are the protein foods. And so if we consider more like the animal-based protein foods, and kind of one tip that I'd say is I know I'm a mom of three, though my kids are more in their early 20s now, but I remember when they were younger, and it can just be really crazy in the morning trying to get everybody ready and out the door and onto school on time and have all their backpacks packed. And so a nicer time to pack the lunches is at night. And I would do it when dinner at the end of dinner. You have all the food out, you have the kids right there, and often, I really don't like food waste. And so maybe I've sliced up some apples, or maybe I have some melon balls left over, or maybe there's some carrot sticks. And so you can kind of start assembling some of those um, types of things to put into the lunchbox. And then maybe you'll consider, okay, gosh, tonight we had rotisserie chicken, we put it on a lettuce. And so, hey, you could say to your child, let's have some chicken tomorrow, and then would you like to dip it in barbecue sauce? And you can dice it up and make it a little bit more in a combination type of thing too. I'm always into the quick, fast, and if they'll eat it, then let's do that. And it doesn't have to be a protein that is animal based. There's plenty of plant-based proteins as well that can be quite delicious choices too. You could see here, like the hard-boiled egg could be something simple, and you can cook those like on a Friday night, like 12 of them, and I even peel them right after I cook them, because then they're just ready to go, and then you have them for the week. Um, Another one is nuts and seeds can be easy, and you'll have to talk to the school if there's any rules about allergies and things of that sort. Um, but beans can be nice because you could do like a bean dip. So if the child is willing to have maybe the pepper with the bean dip, then you could get the protein and get the vegetable in at the same time. Or maybe you made a chili, and so then you want to always be thinking about food safety. And so if you're sending the chili the next day with your child, then you'd want to put the chili in a thermos to keep that nice and warm. Or perhaps as the adult, maybe you can have that chili the next day, but instead of having it maybe the night before, you had it, um, I don't know, just with what would you have your chili with? Maybe you had it with cornbread the night before, but the next day you thought, okay, I'll have it with tortilla chips. But then you want to consider how you're going to do that. Like if you're eating from home, you wouldn't want to bring the whole bag to have with your bowl of chili, because if it's a 12-ounce bag of tortilla chips, your brain's going to think that's the serving size. And so instead, you would say, okay, gosh, I need to take out my chips. What is the serving size? Is it 10 chips? You could put those on a plate. You could put your chili in a bowl. Maybe you could have some baby tomatoes or some celery sticks or some peppers or some carrot sticks to add some flavor and to add some color. So now your plate is really looking quite beautiful. And then maybe you could have some strawberries or sliced apple. I think right now what's more in season, I would say, is the oranges, apples, and bananas and pears. So you could have something so you have a full plate and you still get your tortilla chips, but you're not overeating on those. And that kind of concept then is also what you're doing with your child's lunch. And I'll get to that later down the road, but some of those bento boxes are pretty nice for that because they have the little compartments that then you're kind of putting a food in each little compartment, which it just kind of makes it easier to check off the different parts of the guideline of the My Plate chart. So those are some ideas there in terms of protein foods. And let's see if I had any other. Oh, I did have another idea too in terms of beans, because they are, gosh, if your child is kind of wanting to have some more plant-based proteins, it's nice to give them some different flavor combinations there. But you could do like a can of beans where you dice up some tomatoes and some cucumber, and then maybe use like a vinaigrette type dressing. And you put some pasta noodles in there as well. You could use a whole wheat pasta if they're willing to have that, or you could try some of those new lentil based pastas, or you could just have the regular pasta and make a cold bean type of salad that can be quite delicious as well. So moving on to the next category, dairy foods. And sometimes with my kids, I would just double up on the dairy to give them the protein. And which means if they had a carton of milk at school, and then they could either, my kids happen to like cottage cheese, yogurt, and cheese. And so instead of sending something like a deli meat or a leftover meat from the night before, or the nuts or seeds, I would send instead these other options, and that can work very nicely. There's one combination I really like where you can take plain yogurt. I really like the one from Costco, and it just happens to be very creamy. It's non-fat, but it tastes basically full fat, and it's a non-fat plain Greek yogurt. And then I add orange juice concentrate. So you get that nice orange flavor without any added sugars. You just find that in the freezer section. And then you could have, if it's a younger child, you might then put in a little compartment some nuts and seeds, because some kids wouldn't mind putting some of that into their yogurt, or maybe one compartment you can have diced up berries or some diced up strawberries or some raspberries, and you can put that in. And so you get a nice balanced really quite colorful looking combination that has your fruit, your protein, and some healthy fats and more proteins with your nuts and seeds. So those are kind of some ways that you can bring in some protein type foods that I think can be quite enjoyable for your family. And then we have, in terms of veggies, I'm always looking at how can we bring more vegetables into the mix that the kids will eat. And I would send my kids to school with vegetables, and a lot of times they would come home unless I sent a dip with them. And sometimes they would get really into a ranch craze, and maybe ranch isn't the absolute best thing in the world, but I was always like, well, but if they're willing to eat red peppers and carrot sticks and cucumbers and celery, if they would eat all these different various vegetables, and kids typically then will kind of come out of their phases, and so it worked really well. And then they kind of were willing to have like hummus. um, you could even use pesto, which is a nice healthy fat, and you could take again more like if I was doing it, I would take more like a pasta combination. And I enjoy chicken, so I could cut some chicken in there, maybe dice up some vegetables, and then mix that with the pesto. And if you were sending it to school, I would prefer that warm, and so I would send it in a thermos. If you were having it at home, then, or you were taking it into work, you would put it in a microwave safe container, and you could just heat that up. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, then you could substitute in, I think a nice small white bean could substitute in nicely for that white chicken meat. And but the hummus spread can be so nice too, where lots of kids will enjoy the hummus with the different vegetables. You could also do guacamole. And maybe if you had a bento box, you could have one little box with some tortilla chips or maybe little pita strips. And then you could have your guacamole and then a vegetable of choice. And maybe they'd be willing to have maybe one of those baby tomatoes. And some of these vegetables I have shown here, and here I'll do it. Here's a list of a bunch of vegetables, but time is always, for most of us, short, right? So we want this to be quick. We want it to be delicious. We want the kids to eat it. And I think so often we don't want to recreate the wheel, yet we don't want to send our kids with the same lunch every single day. So how do we make that work? And one way is in the vegetables, the produce section, buy those vegetables that all you have to do is rinse them, like the baby carrots. Well, honestly, celery only takes a few minutes. those baby peppers to take a few minutes, and so some of these sugar snap peas, baby radishes. So those are what I call kind of the quick type of vegetables that rinse them off, put them in the lunchbox, and out the door you go. Or if you did it the night before, then they could be in the fridge that overnight. So there's some vegetable ideas. And then grains. The ideal, there's no question whole grains are the best because they have 100% fiber. I mean, not 100%, they have a lot of fiber in them. Fiber is so good because it stays in your stomach longer. It helps your kids then have better fuel in the afternoon because it's just not out of the stomach so fast. More like a white enriched flour might not be quite so good, except I feel like there are exceptions. But let's first look at what are some of those whole grain things. It could be breads, crackers, rice, if you did some kind of combination dish, whole wheat pastas, popcorns, tortillas. Um, so those are all really nice options. But I also want you to feel like it's okay if there's kind of a neat sandwich that your child loves, and it's on a Hawaiian roll, or it's on a bagel, or it's on white bread. And I'm always like, gosh, if you can hit whole wheat 3 out of the 5 days, I think you're doing really well, and have some of these other breads that can also be fun to include. But you can be creative with kind of that grain part of the meal. And then there's fruit. It says serve a rainbow of choices. It can be fresh, frozen, canned. If it is canned, be sure to watch the added sugars as well as the dried fruits. And it can be kind of tough at times to, it could look so healthy on the label, and it can say organic and 100% blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this must be super healthy. And then you realize it's like as good as a Jelly Belly. I mean, honestly, it's candy basically. So making sure to not let the manufacturer decide for you how healthy that product is, that you look at the label and you look at the back and you say, look under sugars, okay, how much added sugar have they? And of course, fruit is going to be high in carbohydrates, but that's okay. It's when they add a bunch of additional sugar that it can be a problem. But there's lots of dried fruits, and there are lots of canned fruits out there the canned fruits can be packed in a light syrup or even in water. And the dried fruits can be without any added sugars at all. And those can be nice additions. Limit the fruit juice. I know if your child, if you feel like they need to be hydrated, try to stick with the 100% fruit juice, 8-ounce boxes, more like one that's, has some vitamin C in it. And that can help if you're sending a box that really needs to stay cold. And let's say you're taking it out of the fridge at 7 o'clock in the morning and your child doesn't eat until 12. Really, you want something cold in that lunchbox for food safety, to keep your child healthy. And so really fruit juices, even yogurts. I've recently bought the Too Good yogurt. They seem to be quite popular, and I had to try them because so many of the people I work with were eating them, and I froze it by accident because I was traveling, and it was in a fridge in a hotel room, and it froze, and it was so good. So who would have known? So anyway, those would be ways. Or even frozen fruit. The quality of frozen fruit is amazing. And if you take it out of the freezer and put it in their lunchbox in the morning, it's usually in quite good shape by the time they eat it. And it's cold and it's tasty, and it's kind of fun to have a summer fruit in the wintertime. So here's a list of fruits, and there's a whole bunch more out there, but this is a good starting point of different fruits that you could put in the lunchbox. Now, building a better sandwich. I haven't talked too much about the sandwich because I wanted to kind of get to this slide first. And I did mention that you could use different types of breads. That's okay. That a hearty whole grain is ideal, but it's okay to use other breads as well. And then getting a little bit more creative, because you can use something like a waffle occasionally, or the pancake, or a wrap, or even crackers. If at the grocery store, if you're looking at the cracker section, wheat thins and Triscuits are both whole grains, and there's so many different flavor combinations you could use with those things, and they will stay in the stomach longer. And the reason is because the stomach has to like deconstruct all that fiber that's in those crackers, and that's a good thing because then it dilutes the response of the carbohydrate on the blood downstream. And in terms of the sandwich, I don't, if you're making a sandwich for your child and they really want white bread every day, you could try white whole wheat. That sometimes flies, or even like a Franz whole wheat bread that's very smooth in texture. If your child really does not like nuts and seeds and you want to keep all nuts and seeds off and just go for the ones that are really basic, but then add in some type of protein, and that will then help that. Remember, I talked about that diluted response of the carbs on the blood. If you have proteins and fats on the sandwich, then that's going to help a lot. And so on your sandwich, you could do like a low sodium deli meat. I think it's okay to buy low sodium. Your kids won't be able to tell. You get a little bit less of that. I mean, sodium is just a pro-inflammatory. It just creates more inflammation. So if you can help your child not even ever get used to so much sodium, and it's amazing, you can get a third less sodium and you can't even tell because manufacturers are adding so much. Or you could use meats that you had cooked from the night before, whether you had cooked roast beef or a ham or chicken, any of those types of foods. Those all work as well. Or if your child likes egg salad, egg salad and tuna, you'll just have to see how well it works. Sometimes they can smell too much and you don't want that to be a problem, but certainly healthy options if it works out for the situation. And then the veggie, what I found is that my kids did like they like the deli turkey with the cheese. And then if I would, wash the lettuce and then pat it really, really, really dry because you don't want the lettuce to touch the bread and make it wet and soggy because then everybody's unhappy. And so you could put a little bit of lettuce in there and then very, very thinly slice your tomatoes, maybe even grate a little bit of carrot or some cucumber. A lot of kids like that crunch. And so right smack dab in the middle of that sandwich, you can add some of those important veggies and get creative with the spreads because that then you end up with different flavors without really doing much work, right? So it could be the hummus, pesto, guacamole, or the different mayonnaise or different mustards. I didn't list mustards there, but boy, if you ever go to the condiment section of the grocery store, there are a lot of different mustards. And maybe, for the younger kids, a lot of them don't like that kind of, I guess you would call strong flavor. But as the kids get older, oftentimes they would enjoy that. And here's just some ideas about kid-friendly vegetables. And I had forgotten to mention like celery with peanut butter. That would be a way to add some protein and healthy fats with your vegetable. You could do bugs on a log, which for most of us, I think we've heard you could do celery with peanut butter, then have some raisins on top. And this, you can read the different combinations there. I think this one's really cute, the fruity peanut butterfly. And these are probably ones that I don't know, I'm not sure you're going to spend that much time sending these to school, but maybe even as an afternoon snack, you could consider them. And the fruity peanut butterfly, the picture you can see they actually used a cream cheese instead of a peanut butter, which would work just fine too. Now let's look at talk a little bit about the different lunch boxes. And so if you look over in the right corner, that's the ben, bento box, and you can see how it has little compartments. And so um, if you're going to shop for a lunchbox for your child, I just would spend a little bit of time because it is an investment. Like some of these things cost, well, they range in price from like $7 to $70. And so you can see this one pictured, when it shuts, it actually seals from the top. And so the food cannot move from compartment to compartment. And so that's a very good thing, right? So, because as the child walks to school, they are going to be, it's going to get jumbled up, but it doesn't. But what I have found is if when you open the box, let's say you packed cottage cheese, it kind of bloops out. So what I've found works really well if you buy this type of box is you can put a little piece of saran wrap on top, and that can, then all the child has to do is take that saran wrap off, throw it in the garbage, and they can eat their lunch, and there's no mess. Now, there are bento boxes that have compartments within the compartments. And I think those can be good for older kids, um, but not young children, because for young kids, it's kind of hard for them to take the lids off. And then the teacher has to help, and then that's a whole big thing. And so kind of checking that out. There are bento boxes out now that have some type of ice pack in them that are insulated as well. And so that's super helpful because really you do want to keep those cold foods cold and those hot foods hot. So how are you going to do that? And so they have some packaging out there that can be really helpful. They also have adult versions of these, which can be great. And if your child is like, I am taking nothing but a brown paper bag, you got to go with the flow, and you just need to relax and say, that's okay, we can do that. But also talk about, but how are we going to keep your cold foods cold or your hot foods hot? So maybe the thermos will go into the brown paper bag, or maybe a small ice pack. You have to be flexible, but also bringing up these things with the kids isn't a bad idea, because it's oftentimes kids can respond really well to conversations like that. And I forgot to mention some ideas for if you're packing your child's lunch, what you could do in terms of your own lunch. And one idea I was thinking of is, let's say you had hard-boiled eggs that you were putting in one container for your child, and then you were doing sunflower seeds, and then maybe baby tomatoes with ranch dressing. And you could then do all that for yourself and create a salad. And you could either do like a mason jar salad, or you could get more. There's lots of packaged types of things out there that you could use that where you put the salad dressing separate from the lettuce. That's basically what you're trying to do. If you're using a mason jar, what you would do is you put the salad dressing on the bottom, and then all your heavy ingredients. Let's say you wanted tomatoes, but maybe you wanted some carrot slices and cucumber, and maybe you put in some beans, and then maybe you wanted a little bit of chicken with your hard-boiled egg. And then so you kind of put the heavier types of product or ingredients there, and then you would put the lettuce on top, and you put the lid on really tightly, and it seals it shut. And as long as the lettuce isn't really touching all the wet stuff, it stays good for a couple days. And then when you're ready to eat it, you just stir it all up and you can enjoy that. When I talk with people about prepping vegetables ahead of time, they might maybe prep a big salad like on a Sunday night for the week, and then they put the salad dressing on it. And I'm like, no, don't put the salad dressing on the whole thing, because then it's going to wilt. Instead, you just take the salad out that you're going to use and put the salad dressing on that. Otherwise, that lettuce and those veggies will last several days. And that can make it so much easier to include the vegetable at dinner if it's already done, instead of having, you're exhausted, you get home and you have to prep. That's just not what you're going to want to do. And let's see, I don't think there's anything more in terms of the lunchbox styles, but so moving on. And I think there are so many resources for you. And one that I found really helpful.
Go back. The slide didn't change. Try it again.
Yeah. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, so let's see if we can get it to go with our screen share.
Can you go back again?
Yeah, let me go. Should I go back? Let me go back. I'm going to go back 3, then we'll go forward and see. Oh, it's not sharing at all.
It's not.
Oh, should I go out? And
maybe
I'm so glad Amber's here. She can help me with my
wait.
technical difficulties.
It changed.
It switched. Yay! We just had to wait long enough.
Sorry.
Yeah, good. What I found is Holly Granger. So you can see the spelling at the bottom. She has so many different ideas. So she has a website, and on that, 125 healthy lunchbox ideas for kids. And then she gives you an additional 25. And this is all for free. She's not charging for any of this. And then she's on Instagram, and I think she has like 700 lunchbox ideas there. And those are all visuals. And she has young kids, a couple of young daughters. And so they're actually lunchbox combinations that she's used. And what's nice is you might not use the exact lunchbox ideas, but it gives you ideas of what you can prepare for your kids. And as it says here, it gives you inspiration, it gives you new ideas, it helps you be creative, even when you're really, really tired at the end of the day. So I found her resource to be excellent. And then here's another group of resources. Super Healthy Kids, 50 Packable School Lunch Ideas, Create Kids Club, Hip Foodie Mom, Healthy Family Project, all have more lunchbox ideas that you can check out. And if you find your favorite, then you can keep going back to that one. And if you use Pinterest, I think make sure that the person providing the lunchbox ideas is trying to provide healthy ideas. And so if it's a registered dietitian, then you know that they have the knowledge about nutrition to be able to create some balanced and creative lunchbox ideas. And the last resource here is eatright.org. And that one is from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And so it might not necessarily have lunchbox ideas, but it has all sorts of articles on nutrition for children and for adults. And so that can be just a nice resource for you as well. So let's see. So my name's Julie, and if you have any questions, or if you want to contact me by email, my email's there. That's really the best way to contact me. And I'm going to ask Amber and see if there's any questions that people had.
None in the chat, but if you can try and go back a slide again and then forward, it's just really. So, but we'll make sure they get. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
My slide came up. Yes. So if you have questions, please contact me. And thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best in creating new and fun and healthy lunch boxes for your children.